Sure, we're just getting some video fuzz.
Hey, you still want to record that? That's some of the ice crystals that we were dumping out earlier, and yeah, it's a beautiful picture.
But when NASA developed cameras that could see into invisible wavelengths of light, into infrared, far infrared, and then you get into near, far, and extreme ultraviolet sensitivity, this is when there was a wealth of phenomena.
Looks like you got an object right in front of you, Mark, when you're looking out there. That's what you're talking about. Never mind.
Never mind, you just saw it.
Missing something? I don't see anything. Yeah, we think the camera filter came off, Mark. It's about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it.
Columbia, Houston, could you tell us what your TV view is showing?
Well, the sun has actually risen on the belly side of the orbiter, so we're getting some light scattered down from a very bright tail onto the camera lens, and then those little white dots moving around are little ice surrounding the orbiter. So as we come into across the terminator,
you got electromagnetic shower underneath.
Copy that. I was waiting for the opening credits of Star Trek to go down the screen there.
Check it out. Whoa.
Thank you. There's a lot of people swimming around up here.
I'll bet. And we know.
Damn, look at the maneuvers. That sucker is doing 900,000 miles. Look at this one, is gonna return. Look at that fog. Look at that fog.
STS-80. At the beginning of this sequence, we see an electrical storm taking place in the Earth's atmosphere. This high-energy environment also shows multiple objects congregating nearby.
Yeah, they're producing that.
We see the first object materialize and descend into the middle of the atmosphere, where it slows down and then finally holds its position. Would space ice be able to stop and maintain its pace so gracefully?
Yeah, right.
I know that NASA uses iridium-coated mirrors to capture ultraviolet light for space images, and you know they have us are trained to observe this phenomenon, especially with working with those cameras, special CCDs and sensors. You see these vaporous kind of see-through, foggy-looking discs that would be moving and assembling, and even assembling and stopping with these cameras. You're not seeing all the light. You're only seeing part of it. And that's a very small amount of light, because it's the light that's interacting with the background of the space environment. So whatever space is made out of, zero-point energy, it's certainly not a vacuum. It's exciting those particles, and they emit a tiny bit of energy.
Because
you can't buy a
structure
camera over the counter today. It's actually illegal. So it's kind of funny that I remember this one camera that came out. It was I can't remember the name of the camera. It wasn't a Nikon or a Canon or anything like that. It was like a Sigma or something like that. And accidentally, it could see ultraviolet light. And after 1,000 units of the camera got out, they canceled all the sales. You couldn't buy it. I wanted to get one. You couldn't get one. And it almost proved that they didn't want people seeing in those spectra of light.
What seems even more suspicious is the fact that the cameraman is manually tracking the object while filming. When it starts to ascend from its initial position, the camera zooms in and focuses on the object. Is this not evidence that NASA holds at least some interest in these phenomena?
Of course they do. Please. You would be stupid not to.
Physics and astronomy here at Nebraska Omaha for 34 years. And during that time, I also taught for 17 summers. And for a number of times during the year at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Livermore, California. I had a security clearance. I studied the effects of nuclear weapons. I studied electromagnetic theory and nuclear theory, a bunch of different things, and atmospheric physics. And I did that for 17 summers, and that was a big part of my research.
17 years.
I also got a grant to work for NASA. The Star Wars program came into being about 1983 or so. And so I had worked on nuclear weapons and the effects from 75 on up through there, and other different electromagnetic theory problems. And it was after 1983, and if I were to guess, maybe 1984, 85 through 88, something like that, I worked on the microwave laser and maybe other aspects of the Star Wars program too. So there was supposed to be a ground-based system where you could shoot down the missiles that would come out. And we also were going to have space platforms. I think the X-ray laser was going to be up on the space platform, but that was going to be part of it, that we have space satellites up there with the weapons that would then come into use if they ever had to be used. I don't know where they are now, but
this one
they were
is
at least close enough to
operation.
using it that we had to study what would happen with it.
STS-48, September 13th, 1991. It appears there is something coming from the Earth's surface in response to an object entering the atmosphere. Soon after this footage was shot, Dr. Kasher wrote a full scientific analysis of the event. He submitted his findings to NASA and the public.
Any training or understanding on how to deal with something that's vaporous and not easy to see, but yet showing up in these cameras, and it's not physical. So they didn't know whether to believe it or not, but he was mystified. The data was there, it was clearly there.
And what got you interested in STS-48? Why is this an important event that took place in NASA research?
It was 1991, September 15th, I believe, and Don Ratchigan was taking some video of on the NASA Select TV station that they broadcast out for everybody to watch. Sent it to Harry Jordan, one of my cohorts here in Omaha, and he shared the video with me. And we both looked at it and knew there was something really going on here, something quite interesting. And so I was on the Sightings television program, and I kind of showed some of the trajectories and all. And because of that, I was put in contact with an individual at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee who studied little critters that move in the Lake Michigan. And they had a grid that they put over the television picture. And so they could trace in 1/30th of a second intervals where the objects were. And so this was completely ideal to use. And so I got a grant from the Fund for UFO Research, and they overlaid the television picture, and I got all kinds of position time coordinates for a bunch of the little lights that were in the STS-48 video. And taking those data, I was able to calculate all kinds of several different motions, accelerations, and velocities, and so on in 3 dimensions. And the result of that was that I developed 5 direct proofs that the objects in the video were not ice particles, which is the first bailout explanation that people that would look at it might say that these objects might be. And so with my 5 proofs, just from the data itself, analyzing all the velocities and so on, I proved that they could not be ice particles. And so what were they then? You don't have any more options. If they're not ice particles, they can't be comets, they can't be meteors,
electromagnetic vehicles,
they don't change direction.
EMVs.
These things change direction. And so that leaves you just with one other option, some kind of spacecraft.
In the case of STS-48, I think it was very similar. I think they saw something coming in, and they shot at it.
The air glow, and right below it, hard to see, is the surface of the Earth. This is the Earth down here, and this is above the atmosphere. That's a star. This is the second object that is of interest to us.
Yeah,
it's slowly
right.
coming up, as you can see. In a little bit, you're going to see the main object pop up here, go over, and you'll see some flashes down here, and then it's going to sharply cut back here.
Look at the one moving in the background. That's not no stars.
Go through there, right where it is. Here we go. And it's going to be a flash down here.
Boom.
There's your flash. Here it goes. And there goes the streak. And there's a second streak right there, hard to see. And these objects are moving too. This one actually moved up in this direction after the flash. So that's the main thing. And these two objects here are the ones that are of interest, plus the streak, which is a different type of quality that goes through there right after the main object leaves. You can't tell by watching the video, but the main object actually paused for half a second before it turned back up the other direction.
Yeah, he detected
We're going to
incoming.
continue on here, and they're going to bring the camera down and put it away in the cargo bay. I don't know what this thing is, but it's really a very interesting object too.
Water dump attitude will take about 15 minutes, and in order to start the dump on time, we'd like for you to do that maneuver now.
Oh, look.
We need it to prevent contamination.
Look how he moves.
Okay, I understand you want us to start the supply water dump.
It's coming down, you're going to be able to see that it was focused at infinity, because once it gets down here, the side of the cargo bay is going to be out of focus. It is the side of the cargo bay out of focus, and then they'll refocus it. Now you can see it. Then it's going to turn toward the front, and you're going to be able to see the whole front of the cargo bay. So here it goes. The way they behaved out there, depending on how far away from the shuttle they were, was an extraordinary thing. To the extent that if they were 10 miles or farther from the shuttle, they behaved in ways that were vastly beyond anything that we can do on the Earth. Four NASA employees were given this to offer their opinion. They just watched the video. They did no analysis of it. And what they came up with was reasonable, that it had to be ice particles, and that's as far as they took it. Did not say a single thing about, there were two streaks that went up through there, like you might expect from a missile. I was able to rule out at least 5 different proofs that they were not ice particles. And if they weren't, the only other viable option is some kind of spacecraft. And the way it behaved, again, I can't prove how far away it was.
Evade the laser shot. The
It's
particle.
unbelievably close. It's dangerous. If it's 10 miles away, it accelerated in a fashion that was beyond anything that humans could stand. 100 Gs it would be, which would destroy a human being. And then as you start going out beyond 10 miles, then we're talking about quantum leaps in technology beyond what we have. And so, to me, the logical conclusion is that these were spacecraft from somewhere else out in space away from the shuttle. And it's hard to explain those two streaks that went through there unless it's in terms of one good explanation might be that they were missiles, that we might be firing at them, and that's a scary thing too.
But I don't believe that they're craft that the military would be alarmed about. I think it's possible the military could be preparing for some type of space war based on their own paranoia and their own schizophrenia about not being able to handle what cameras are seeing.
At the end of NASA's Atlantis shuttle mission, STS-115, when the crew was supposed to make a controlled re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere, a UFO tracked the space station and blocked the entryway. This was a potentially dangerous event that could have resulted in the death of the crew, had there been a collision or an unexpected redirection during their descent. NASA's explanation was that this large object was simply a piece of plastic.
When she tried to explain, she fainted. Look at that. She collapsed. They hit her with some kind of
but a piece
electromagnetic
of plastic, very much
weapon.
like this, that's used to install tiles was there before, is most likely what we saw in
Look
that
at
King
that
review.
shitty ass explanation.